And I think for other people, I think it's external pressures. I think it's like, oh man, my wife is gonna fucking think I'm a loser, or like my dad's not gonna be proud of me, or you know what I mean, like my older sibling is gonna fucking clown on me, or some shit like that. It seems like a lot of people are more affected by external pressures, and so they're really worried about the outside kind of perspectives. Like, because if you want to start a business or something like that, like, again, if nobody around you has started a business, maybe they have some insight, but it's like, say you fail and you lose some money, you know what I mean? And like it really sucks and it was a shit year. And then everybody else is like, I told you so. It's like very quickly it should be like, motherfucker, you've never started anything in your life. Get the fuck out of here. Like, you've never started a business. You didn't know what was going to happen because you don't know the first 10 steps I had to take to get there. So shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? In the nicest way possible. Casual Exchanges podcast, where most of the time we are going to try to walk through thinking about novel, everyday, normie problems. But the rest of the time, we are going to have to point out when something is completely fucking dumb and brain dead. Okay? This is going to be a lot like those super rare coffee beans that they pull out of like elephant shit. Okay, well, sometimes you get those rare coffee beans. Other times it's just a pile of elephant shit. Welcome in. Without naming your job, what are the most common words you say every day? Welcome to the Krusty Krab. It's a sex shop, by the way. Just kidding. I'm going to have to edit that out. If you died as an atheist and then met God, what would you say to him? Oof, my man. You're like, sup, big dog? That was my bad. That was my bad. Like, what do you say in that situation? Oh my God, man. I'm so sorry. I am. Maybe this is a hot take. These Ask Women Over 40 threads are always dog shit, bro. It's the ones I've seen are always fucking just people cheering each other on to like get divorced. You don't need no man. Bro, shut the fuck up. Get out of here. I want to, I feel like there are really good interestings to be had around the problems of my generation. I think they're very, like, I'm a millennial. And they're very, we're being challenged with a lot of like unique issues. And we also have a lot of unique tools that we can really put to work and employ to help us solve some of those issues. But unfortunately, the younger generations, mine and younger, are also sometimes just the most whiny bitch babies on the fucking planet. And so it's so hard to have like a good conversation about this because it ends up devolving some of the time. Sometimes it's a good conversation, but other times it just ends up devolving into, wah, I didn't ask to be born. Capitalism bad. Billionaires bad. It's the fucking government is fucking, fucking holding me back. Like, it's just the most like you just start out blaming one person and then by the end of the conversation they're just blaming somebody completely different. And so like I don't know that there's going to be anything interesting in this thread. What's a ticking time bomb you believe will explode during your I'm not even going to do it. Fuck off. There's not going to be, it's just going to be people complaining. I'm not going to do it. Bro, does anyone else spread cheeks before pooping? Bro, what the fuck are we talking about? Do people do that, bro? Is this a real thing? I have so many things I could say on this. You? Oh, how'd you get over the fear of failure and become more courageous? Let's see, what worked for you and what helped you out the most? So this is going to vary person to person, but I think a couple of things that we can think about in general here. Let's list out here. Let me put some brain power behind this. Anyways, how did you get over your fear of failure and become more courageous? Okay. So I think first I would want to point out that a little bit of fear is probably good. Is probably healthy. It keeps us human. And in real life situations, it's just a manifestation of whatever risk that you're potentially walking into. Okay. I think I've had this issue in the past where there's a little bit of like analysis paralysis, where for me, there's absolutely the approach I take is like, okay, well, let me make sure I have all the boxes checked off. You know what I mean? Before I move an inch. And I'm finally coming around to realizing, like, hey, definitely worthwhile to plan. And I definitely want to do some due diligence, but maybe I need to reduce the time it takes me to actually get started to really employ that impetus and get the ball moving on something. And maybe getting started is really just the most valuable thing. The reason for that is ultimately getting over your fear of failure. I think what it's going to come down to is building confidence, which seems like very intuitive. Okay, but how do I build confidence? Probably through repetition, through those reps, through the activity, through having like momentum and stuff like that. I think that would change your perspective on it, which I think is really the thing. I think if you're coming at it from an angle of like you're scared to fail, I think it's like, yeah, again, like you can fail, you know what I mean? But like what's the real risk in that? You know what I mean? It's like, because if it's not life altering, if it's not like you develop fucking, you know what I mean, heart disease or cancer, or you lose all your fucking life savings and you get fired from your job, you know what I mean? And then who's going to feed your 5 kids? Like, if it's not the end of the world, then it's not the end of the world. Right? That's the way we have to kind of see it. It's like, and so normally I try to take. I am very risk averse, and so when I engage with these types of situations, I make sure I have some level of safety net, right? Like if I'm investing, I make sure it's money that like I could just straight lose and still be okay. Um, if I spend money on services or something like that, you know what I mean? Same thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe the service isn't fucking, too good to be true or something like that. I expect that. I'm pretty good at managing my expectations. And so I feel like maybe that's something worth mentioning on this. It's just like manage your expectation as well. Like maybe you will fail. And to the extent that it doesn't kill you, who sang that fucking song? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Um, you know what I mean? I think there's something to that. Probably it's a cheesy ass song, but I think there's something to that. Like, adjust your expectation. Understand that, like, maybe you will fail, but on the macro, so if you're like starting a small business, right? To the extent that the business doesn't go bankrupt, you haven't failed yet. You know what I mean? To the extent that you don't have to liquidate and start all over, you haven't failed yet. Just losing money isn't necessarily a failure. You can come back, hit it harder next year. You know what I mean? And flip that. You know what I mean? Bring in more money than you spend. So I think trying to regulate your expectations on something, maybe that could be helpful. And then also, whatever it takes to just kind of get started, to build reps, to get comfortable and build that confidence, I think that's going to be huge too. Just building reps, man. Building reps. And from, if you want to be a fucking nerd and a pussy about it, I always like to come up with some sort of checklist and really try to do my due diligence on the front end. But again, do not fall into the trap of analysis paralysis. I'll fucking set this for myself right now. Set a timeline to hold yourself accountable. Okay, come up with your checklist and be like, okay, I'm going to review this for the week, see if I'm missing anything, and then if all of this is checked off, we just got to get started. You know what I mean? Don't drag it out, or else that will last forever. That analysis paralysis phase, and that just comes to your own detriment. You know what I mean? Because the longer it takes you to get started, the longer it takes you to get reps in, the longer it's going to take you to build confidence, the more you're going to feel that kind of fear of failure. So that's my 15 cents. I'm sure Reddit has much better advice. Failing multiple times and seeing everything is okay and achieving things, knowing how much effort it really takes to be great. Consistency. You need to fail and succeed consistently over time. Yeah, this is huge. And I wish Clearly, I could have articulated my ideas just way better, because I feel like this is pretty concise. Yeah, consistent effort over time. You know what I mean? Which is, I guess, my interpretation of that was, more reps. Um, but yeah, we have to change our perspective around the fear of failure. Okay, failure is not something you can necessarily avoid. Sometimes, like, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? There are going to be plenty of quote unquote failed relationships before you find your husband or wife, your spouse. There are going to be plenty of jobs that you quit before you find the one that you're going to retire from. You know what I mean? If you've ever invested, you know this very well. The markets are always all over the place. They fluctuate. And it's sometimes at times they're very volatile. You know what I mean? And so if this is maybe a really good example, but like if you invest and you watch your portfolio every day, it's gonna stress you the fuck out, dude, because it's like, oh my god, I'm down. Oh my god, tomorrow I'm up. The next day, oh my god, I'm down. The next day, oh my god, I'm up. Like, it's gonna give you fucking whiplash if you follow it. So that's not the best approach. You know what I mean? Like, just sitting there and just watching and trying to micromanage, you probably lose money that way. In investing, my understanding at least, right, is to just diversify the portfolio into a couple of different places, and then park it in solid investments over a long period of time, and that's normally what sees the most growth. You know what I mean? And I think that is very applicable here. You know what I mean? My fear of failure is linked to my anxiety. Whenever I feel anxious, I tell myself I'm not in danger. Yes, failure has consequences, but those consequences are rarely ever fatal. This is not a quick fix. It takes time and practice, like any habit. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Honestly, I feel like a lot of hot take. I feel like a lot of anxiety is actually just tied to the fear of failure. A lot of the people I see, that report having like high anxiety levels, I I can I can get trapped in my own head with that kind of analysis paralysis, to where if I stayed there forever, like I would probably be a very anxious person, because it feels like you're standing on a ledge. You know what I mean? It feels like you're so fucking tightened up and rigid, afraid to take that first step. That you freeze, and you don't want to move at all. And that's why I do make it a point that's probably the only thing that gets me out of my analysis paralysis, is the fact that I know from experience that at some point I have to move. I do not want to live a life where I'm standing still, and so that necessitates that I'm going to have to move. Um, and it's very simple, and sometimes you're going to move in the wrong direction. But for me, just even that simple approach has helped out. And it is something I touched on. Yeah, to the extent that it's not fatal, it will be fine. It doesn't feel good, but that's okay. Yeah. If you're controlled by that fear, you'll fail at life. There's a paradox that in order to succeed, you must be willing to fail. Probably true. Also, you can build up a tolerance to the feeling of failure. Oh, okay. Tell yourself that with every failure comes wisdom you did not previously have. Further, every failure required an act of courage on your part. Every time you try and fail, you've gained wisdom and exercised courage. Right on. Yeah, I don't entirely disagree with this. I do think over a long period of time, if you just keep trying, if you just keep moving in a direction, provided it's a halfway decent direction, and you're not trying to be like the craziest crackhead on the street, like, right, to the extent that your goals are good and reasonable, yeah, I think you know just keep moving in that direction, and you'll probably end up better off. I think if you fall into the trap of analysis paralysis, and you can never get yourself to take that step, and you just live in that realm of fear, and you use it to never take a risk, I think your life will be much worse off, unfortunately. Because I think you have to take risks. And Jim Ron, who I've talked about previously, has a couple of good quotes on this. Maybe I'll just link them here instead of actually talking.
Risk used to drive me right up the wall. I used to say, what if this happens? It's called the language of the poor. What if this happens? And on top of that, if this was to happen, look at the fix I'd be in. I better not try. I could always ace myself out. Then I'll tell you what changed my whole life when I finally discovered it's all risky. The minute you were born, it got risky. If you think trying is risky, wait till they hand you the bill for not trying. If you think investing is risky, wait till you get the tab for not investing. Getting married is risky. Having children is risky. Going into business is risky. Investing your money is risky. It's all risky. I'll tell you how risky life is. You're not going to get out alive.
I think he's got some really good fucking takes on that. I like Jim Rohn. Check him out. A lot of good clips. A lot of good VODs. He did a lot of good lectures and stuff. I've learned to love myself, to know both my strengths and my limits, and to shape my character into something so steady that rejection or harsh criticism no longer shakes my confidence or makes me doubt who I am. Luna Peaches, we love that for you. I do think there is a self-esteem portion to this. There is the way I would approach this is that my fear of failures surround the fact that I am my toughest critic. So when I fail, when I actually fail at something, I am going to beat the shit out of myself. And so that's why I do so much due diligence on the front end, because I know if I miss the mark or it doesn't turn out how I wanted it, that's the first thing I'm going to go to is, why didn't you ask this? Why didn't you think of this? Why didn't you look at this? It's the easiest thing to go to, and I know I'm going to drill myself for it. So, and I think for other people, I think it's external pressures. I think it's like, oh man, my wife is going to fucking think I'm a loser, or like my dad's not going to be proud of me, or you know what I mean? Like my older sibling is going to fucking clown on me or some shit like that. It seems like a lot of people are more affected by external pressures. And so they're really worried about the outside kind of perspectives. And for me, that's kind of weird. I am not sure, like, because if you want to start a business or something like that, like, again, if nobody around you has started a business, maybe they have some insight, but it's like, say you fail and you lose some money, you know what I mean? And like, it really sucks and it was a shit year. And then everybody else is like, I told you so. It's like, very quickly, it should be like, motherfucker, you've never started anything in your life. You know what I mean? Like, you can't even start an Atkins diet. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you've never started a business. You didn't know what was going to happen because you don't know the first 10 steps I had to take to get there. So shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? In the nicest way possible. But seriously, if people have never been to where you're going, I don't understand, or I can't come up with a great argument as to why we would put a lot of stock into what they're saying. I think it's important to recognize, I understand that on some level we are going to have this thing, like maybe you look up to your parents, or you look up to your big brother or sister, you know, you want your wife to like you, like things like that. Like, I don't want to discredit that, but at the same time, I think it's helpful to be able to detach yourself from that and understand, like, oh man, everybody's telling me this is a bad fucking idea, but like I've put a lot of time and energy and research into this, and I really think I can make it happen. You know what I mean? I think at some point, you know, you just kind of got to trust yourself on it. And I think, again, because if you're caving to the external pressures, I think that's what's driving your fear of failure, right? It's kind of that level of insecurity that's coming from everybody else telling you, you know, maybe they're telling you you're a loser, you can't do it or something like that. For me, that would very much call into question, like, oh, why the fuck am I here? You know, but to each their own. But I definitely think it's worth looking at. I think it's definitely worth, you know, I'm a big advocate for just being your own biggest critic. It comes with its own set of hurdles and issues and stuff like that. But at the same time, nobody thinks I'm a bigger loser than I do. Nobody knows how much, you know what I mean? Like, nobody knows how much I failed more than I do. Nobody knows my flaws better than I do. Nobody calls them out more than I do. And I'm okay with that. So when if other people want to come up with some sort of fucking critique, it's either like, oh yeah, you're right, and also, line these three things in, or it's like, yeah, actually, I don't think that's my biggest weakness. You know what I mean? I don't know. Food for thought. Let me know. And that's all, folks. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That way you can talk shit on my next video too, all right? Have fun. Let's try to do this again sometime.